This is TEDxOshkosh TV, a complimentary extra to the annual TEDxOshkosh in-person event. In each episode of the show, we'll learn more about a past TEDxOshkosh speaker, how their talk idea is spread, and the change it has inspired.
I'm Grace Lim. Welcome to TEDxOshkosh TV. I'm your host. Today, we're joined by Juliëtte Sterkens, a longtime audiologist and hearing loop advocate. In her 2023 TEDxOshkosh talk, What You Don't Know About Hearing Aids, she pulls back the curtain on the limits of hearing technology and the hidden tools that could make all the difference. Now, before we get to our guest, here's a short clip from her talk.
Hearing loss is common. For many of us, it's not a matter of if, but when we will lose some of our hearing. About half of us will acquire it by age 75. 2/3 of us when we reach our mid-80s. It's on the increase in children, and baby boomers are experiencing more hearing loss than those of past generations. And if hearing loss runs in the family, there's a good chance you'll get it too.
Juliëtte, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
So I'm going to just jump right into this. Tell me, what made you decide on this particular talk at this moment?
Hearing loss is common. It's obvious from my talk, it's common. And there are just so many consumers who don't know that the limitations of hearing aids can be overcome by technologies you can use at home or in public when you're out and about in the car, but also in theaters and in churches and performing arts centers. And so I've been giving presentations around the country, in Australia and Europe, but they're small groups. And I had hoped that this would bring the information to lots of people with hearing loss outside of those places where I speak. And it has.
That's great. So let me backtrack a little bit. You are a longtime audiologist. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I was educated as a speech-language pathologist in the Netherlands, moved to Oshkosh to go to grad school to study audiology, and never left. And worked in a private practice here in Oshkosh for 25 years, 24 I think. And in 2008, I learned that hearing loops were making a comeback. Now, they were already in the schools for the kids that had hearing loss back in the 70s when I was doing my student teaching. And it made a huge difference. You could tell when the teacher said, turn on that little feature in your hearing aid, these little shrimpy fingers would turn the telecoil on, and these kids were able to hear the teachers. And when I heard hearing loops were making a comeback and that they would help my patients hear better, I just kind of jumped on it. I just wanted to help my patients hear better. That's really what got me going to begin with.
Okay, so for those who haven't seen your talk and don't know what hearing loops are, could you just give me a very brief description of what that is?
Yeah, and I think it's important to backtrack just a little
Sure.
bit, because people think that hearing aids are like eyeglasses and that hearing aids will just about give you back the hearing that you've lost. But in reality, they give you back about half of the hearing loss that you have suffered. And that means that hearing aids have limitations, that you have a limited range of a couple of feet where they work very effectively, but in places where there's background noise, where there's distance involved, or where there's reverberation, like think echoey churches, they really have a hard time functioning. And what hearing loops do is pick up the sound from the microphone on the lectern or on the stage and wirelessly broadcast it to the hearing aid, to a feature in the hearing aid that's called a telecoil. And that means instead of you having to hear the sound coming through the space, the sound comes to you directly in your hearing aid by way of the hearing loop. And that means you hear as if your ear is right near the mouth of the speaker. And it makes people hear significantly better.
No, I have to say, tell the viewers, I am hard of hearing and I have hearing aids.
Yep.
And I know exactly what you're talking about because the hearing loop in church and the BAC.
Yep.
I mean, all these places with large gatherings of people, I'm able to hear, and it's so cool. So I am so glad that you're an advocate for this.
Yeah, you can be sitting in the back row of the Oshkosh Convention Center and still hear as if you're sitting in the first row. And so that's what really got me going. I wanted to bring this to my patients so that they could hear better. And then it kind of blossomed out to the Fox Valley and then to the whole state. And then it didn't take very long for me to open my big mouth at national conventions, and basically, the rest is history.
Well, bless your big mouth.
Yeah, big Dutch mouth.
Okay. So back to your talk, and you mentioned that hearing aids are only half the solution. I mean, and can you tell what is the other half?
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Well, I alluded to it a little bit earlier. Hearing aids don't give you normal hearing. So imagine having 20/200 vision and you getting glasses and your glasses only restoring your vision to 20/100 or 20/75, and that you're still going to have to get a little closer in order to see all the fine detail. So hearing aids can make sound louder. Don't mistake when I say hearing aids only solve half of your hearing problem that they aren't loud enough. They are loud enough. They're not clear enough. They're not distinct enough. And it's hard to cut through the background noise. And my patients kept complaining. It didn't matter the level of technology that they were wearing. They just didn't hear well in places that were important to them.
Sure. No, I get that. So when you gave the talk, after you gave the talk, how did the audience react? And tell us a little bit about what you did at the very beginning.
In the very beginning of the talk, I made people essentially experience hearing loss. Now, the talk was intimidating because if you've never stood on stage at the Grand, you're staring into this black abyss, basically, and you can't see faces. And I'm familiar, I do give lots of talks around the country, and you give me 20 slides, I can talk, for half an hour. You give me 50 slides, I can talk for 2 hours. But when you're standing on stage and it's just you've been there, it's very intimidating. So I had to work really hard to memorize the text. And you just don't know if people are following your conversation. Are they listening? You can't see people smile or nod. It's just... And then when people started cheering at a certain point in the talk, when I mentioned how much progress we've made in the Fox Valley and in Wisconsin, it's like, people are really listening. And then you come out, back into the gathering space after your talk, and people want to share their stories. Ultimately, everybody has a story about hearing loss. It's their mom, it's their dad, it's their neighbor, it's them losing their hearing, and lots of people, I gave out cards, people emailed me afterwards, people wanted my support, and I give it freely. I, at this point, essentially work for the Hearing Loss Association of America. And I'm no longer in practice. I support people who are hard of hearing. So basically anybody can contact me.
So your talk, and it resides on TEDxOshkosh TV, and it's on YouTube, and it's been watched nearly 1 million times and has generated more than 1,000 individual comments. First, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if you read the comments, They're terrific. I mean, again, it's people sharing stories. I try to respond to each and every comment. And from people having watched the TED Talk, I've been invited to come and give lectures. I've emailed with people, some people just once or twice. I've emailed with people 20 times. There are advocates, there are now people advocating for better hearing access because they saw my TED Talk.
Awesome.
I mean, that is just, it's incredible. And there's one email that stands out. I get this email in my inbox that said, I can't say this without getting emotional. It's, your TED Talk changed my husband's life. And when you get an email like that, they took my advice, they went back to their audiologist, they got an accessory, and this woman said, we use it in the car, we use it for TV, we've used it in a restaurant. My husband can hear me again. You know, so it's not the overwhelming, it's one person at a time change. That's the nature of my work.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about making a difference in the world, you're actually doing that.
It's one person at a time, but you know, the talk, it just keeps, you know that the original title of my talk was different. I think it was Beyond Hearing Aids or something like that, and the TEDx organizers changed it to What You Don't Know About Hearing Aids, and apparently they know what gets clicks, but it's working.
Oh, that's
yeah.
And you know what? And there seems to be a need for that kind of information, right? You know, there are some misconceptions about hearing loss. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they think hearing aids give you normal hearing. They think louder is better. We would never not open the door for somebody who's walking with a walker or who just got a hip replacement. But yet, we blame people who have hearing loss for not hearing. Have you got your hearing aids in? You know, they'll talk to you while they're walking away. You're in the kitchen and the faucet is running. And so people who don't have hearing loss don't really understand what it is to have hearing loss. It's not that you can't hear. You have trouble understanding. And so you pick up bits and pieces. Your brain is working overtime. Did I hear this right? Are we talking about the weather? Are we talking about the food? Are we talking, you know? So it's very frustrating. And I do lots of consumer education lectures, not just for the person who's hard of hearing, but for the partner, for the family. And that's really my number one advice when I talk to people who are thinking about getting a hearing test. You never should go alone. You should bring a partner or a family member, somebody who's close to. People hear more than one. I am a huge proponent of educating consumers about best practices so that they get the services that they deserve to get the most out of their hearing aids, and then for the spouse or the family member to work out a system that works for them. You know, I don't know if you have Siri on your phone, but if you have Siri on your phone, the only way you can get it to work is to go, Siri, what time is it? But if you say, what time is it, Siri? She won't respond. Right. So why would you be any different? So if your husband needs you, he should be saying, hey, Grace. And then you go, ding, 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 that's me. And then he should say, but if he says, would you like another cup of coffee, Grace? You missed it. You only hear Grace.
Right.
And there are little things that you can do to just make the whole communication easier and smoother.
I keep telling my husband and my children, I mean, that you need to be right in front of me. I love that you look right at me and you're in my cone of hearing.
Yes.
You know, like this. And I tell that to my students also, that if you walk away, I cannot hear you.
Nope.
And the things that I think people with hearing loss tend to be much more engaged to the person because we have to.
You have to. You have to. And effectively, Grace, stick out your arm. This is the effective range of a hearing aid, 2 arms lengths. And on top of that, if you have a son or a daughter-in-law who speaks a mile a minute, when you're hard of hearing, I mean, I'm Dutch, so my brain processes everything back to my Dutch brain, and that means I need a hair more time. And the same goes for somebody who has hearing loss. You just need a little bit of time to process information.
You know, one thing about getting hearing aids, there's a stigma of hearing aids, that you're kind of, you know, you're old and confused, and so people don't want to use hearing aids. I mean, do you still, is that still common?
It's still common, and then people wait a very long time, and in the meantime their brain is out of practice, and then they get hearing aids, and then they may not get the support from the family to encourage them to wear the hearing aids. You need to get used to the amplification. You need to work with the audiologist. Audiologist can track whether you use your hearing aids. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it may mean the first month they set it at a slightly lower setting so that your brain can get used to it, but then it needs to be verified and upped in gain until you are at full prescription. So there's a lot more going on in the audiologist office than you may be aware of.
Sure.
And then again, if you don't bring your partner, the partner doesn't know what the limitations are. So while I'm working on you, I'm going to be, you know, feeding some information to the partner. I have handouts available. I mean, I no longer practice, as you know, but I'm happy to share all kinds of information
I wish I brought
who are watching this.
I wish I brought my husband to that.
Yeah, you should have brought him today. You can watch.
I got to tell you though, the first day I had my hearing aids on, I mean, actually I think they sent me home with a practice hearing aids. I left the office and walked out and to my car, and I came right back in because everything was so loud, and I thought they messed
wrong.
up, right? And my audiologist said I was just hearing humanity. Yeah. I heard leaves crunching for the first time. I heard the squeak of the door that was opening, and it was crazy. It was so cool. But my brain was not catching up.
No, your brain wasn't over time. So it needs time. And for some people, that's 2 or 3 weeks. And for some people, that's 2 or 3 months. Oh. So you have to be patient with yourself.
So, you know what I love about your talk was that you are advocating for those who have hearing aids to hear better, and then for their significant others, their family, to understand the importance of this. Yep. You know, and I got to tell you, I mean that is, I'm grateful for that. So thank you for that. You know. I know. My mom, my mother-in-law. I mean, I actually embraced my needing hearing aids. I was only 42. I was kind of young for that.
Yes,
but I was so happy to be able to hear. Yeah. I mean, I was just like greeting people, say, "Hey, look at my hearing aids."
My mom wears like bright electric blue hearing aids, and she'll whip them out, you know, and she's going to be 99, and she'll still say, "Well, if you're not wearing hearing aids, that's dumb. You're missing out."
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's great.
Terrific.
So, for people who are watching, our talk today, I mean, what is one small change they can make to become better advocates?
Yeah. I think anybody who's watching this, if you're wearing hearing aids and if you've never heard of assistive listening technology, you need to look into this. And there's a couple of websites, hearingloss.org and Center for Hearing Access, because these assistive listening systems are mandated by law under the ADA. So the Americans with Disabilities Act mandates how high the light switches need to be in the bathroom and wheelchair access, but the ADA also recognizes that hearing aids don't give you normal hearing, and then they mandate in places where a microphone is in use, an assistive listening system shall be installed. So if they don't have one, write a Google review, complain. That's one thing you can do. If they have one, use it, try it out. And if it doesn't work well, contact me or write, again, a review. And these systems frequently are sitting unused until we started advocating for hearing loops. But because if there's a hearing loop in a venue, you can walk into, say, Rafe's Church here in Oshkosh, sit down, and when the service starts, you push on the button of your hearing aid or you swipe on your smartphone, it turns that telecoil on, and bingo, the sound from the PA comes streaming into your hearing aid. That is a huge advantage. You don't have to go to the service desk and pick up a listening device. You don't have to worry, is the battery going to last all the way through Hamilton? No, it's, your hearing aids are going to work. So the technology should really be very seamless, should work with all make, model hearing aids, and should work around the world.
That's great.
And that's hearing loops do at this moment.
Wow, that's on. So, what was like preparing for this TEDx talk compared to your other presentations?
How much time have you got? It is my 60-plus-year-old brain. I had to memorize 2,000 words. But there are two things that helped. I mean, anybody who's watching this because they want to do a TED Talk, here's my advice. There's something called a loci method. It's a method that helps you memorize each and every paragraph based on, in my case, it was body parts, my hair, my forehead, my eyebrows, my eyes. And every paragraph, I could practice that whole TED Talk based on these body parts down to my toes. That was one. So it's called the loci method. And the other thing I did is I made a recording on my iPhone and I listened to it ad nauseum. I listened to it while walking, while practicing, sitting on a stationary bike. I listened to them at night. I was pretty obnoxious for about 3 months because I had so much information crammed in these 18 minutes. So I'm happy with the way it turned out. I wish I had enjoyed it more. And I wish my husband had taken more photos, but he was so nervous for me. I don't think he could have walked around taking photos. So we were both nervous. It was just.
But you did a great job.
I think there was some editing involved, Grace.
And but you know what? Okay, so talk about the day of. I mean, there are like 4 or 5, or I don't know how many cameras they have at this time, but.
Yeah.
And you had a live audience.
Yeah.
But you practiced a lot.
I practiced a lot. It was very helpful that we were able to go on stage and practice. You've been there, and oh my God, that made me so nervous. I think I slept 3 hours before the event. But then all that practice paid off. It just kind of came out a little mechanical. I don't think anybody's ever happy with the way they sound with that kind of speech. But I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did because, like I said, the emails that I get from people are heartwarming. Yeah.
So how has this talk, changed you or affected you?
I'm more confident. I'm confident that we are making, I'm making a change in people's lives. Also more aware that it's just one person at a time. I wish it was millions of people at a time. But it's also given me a lot of credibility. So like I said, I've been invited to speak in Australia. I've spoken in Europe a couple of times, and that 1 million mark is huge. And that also, I think, makes people click. They may see the talk and then they see it's been viewed 1 million times and they go, hey, I wonder, there has to be something there. And there is something there for everybody. People who aren't hard of hearing but know somebody who is, or people who have hearing loss but are frustrated and have stopped wearing, there are just so many workarounds that if you want to hear your best, you need to do more than just wear a hearing aid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this. I've learned something, and I'm a hearing aid user.
You're experienced.
I know, and I learned something new, and I hope the
Great.
rest. I'm sure our viewers will also learn something. And again, thank you. And I'm Grace Slim, and you've been watching TEDxOshkosh TV.
Visit TEDxOshkosh.com to view the complete talks of all past TEDxOshkosh speakers, as well as more episodes of TEDxOshkosh TV.